You swipe your card, not because you can't afford it, but because it feels easier. It's just one tap, no friction, no hesitation. And in that moment, you feel in control. But here's the part no one tells you. The more in control it feels, the more control you're actually losing. Because this isn't about spending. It's about something deeper. Why does your balance never really disappear? Even when your income goes up? Why does being responsible still feel like you're stuck? And the worst part, what if the way you're using your credit card is quietly costing you more than $10,000 without ever feeling like a mistake? 10. The minimum payment illusion. You open your statement. You don't panic, because there it is. Minimum payment, $47. That feels manageable, responsible even. So you pay it, close the app, and move on. But something subtle just happened. You didn't reduce your debt, you preserved it. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because minimum payments don't solve the problem. They stretch it, turn months into years, turn small purchases into long-term obligations. You think you're staying afloat, but what you're actually doing is agreeing to stay stuck. And here's the uncomfortable part. The system was designed that way, not to trap you instantly, but to keep you comfortable long enough so you never feel urgency. You never feel the real weight. And that raises a question. If it feels so manageable, why doesn't it ever actually go away? 9. The I'll pay it off later. Lie. You swipe again. But this time, you justify it. I'll pay it off next month. And it sounds logical, because technically, you can. But something shifts. You've moved the consequence into the future. And the future version of you always seems more capable, more disciplined, more in control. But that version never arrives. Because next month, you do the same thing again. And this is where it compounds. Not financially at first. Psychologically. You stop treating spending as final. It becomes flexible, adjustable, delayed. And once that happens, there's no real stopping point. Just a rolling balance that quietly follows you. So the question becomes, if you keep pushing it forward, when does it actually stop? 8. The rewards trap. Cashback, points, miles. It feels like you're winning, like you've figured out the system. Why use cash when I can earn rewards? But pause for a second, because this is where perception flips. You don't spend to buy things anymore. You spend to earn rewards, and that changes behavior. Subtly, dangerously, you start justifying purchases. It's only $200, but I get 2% back. But you didn't make money. You spent more to feel like you did, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. The reward isn't financial. It's psychological, a small hit of validation, a reason to keep going. And suddenly, you're not optimizing spending. You're increasing it with a reason that sounds smart. So ask yourself, if rewards are helping you, why does your balance still grow? By treating credit like income. You check your bank account, then you check your credit limit. And without realizing it, you combine them. It feels like one number, one pool of money, one level of what you can afford, but it's not. One is yours. The other is borrowed time. And this is where the shift happens. You start spending based on access, not ownership, which means your lifestyle expands faster than your reality. And at first, it works. You upgrade things. You feel progress. But something doesn't add up because your income didn't change. Only your access did. And access always comes with a cost. So the real question is, if your lifestyle depends on borrowed money, is it actually yours? Number 6, ignoring small interest. It's just a few dollars. $12 here, $18 there. It doesn't feel significant, so you ignore it. But this is where it starts. Not as a big loss, but as something invisible. Because interest doesn't hit all at once. It accumulates quietly, silently, and over time. Those small numbers become a pattern, and patterns become systems. And systems shape outcomes. You don't feel the damage daily. You feel it later as a total you don't recognize. And here's the problem. By the time it feels real, it's already built. So now you have to ask, if small interest feels harmless, what happens when it's no longer small? 5. The midpoint shift, identity break. This was never about credit cards. Not really. It's about the version of you that keeps choosing convenience over awareness. Again, and again, and again. You don't lose money in one moment. You lose it in patterns, repeated decisions that feel harmless until they aren't. And here's the part most people avoid. You're not being irresponsible. You're being consistent. Consistently choosing ease. consistently avoiding friction, consistently delaying consequences. And that creates a life that feels stable, but isn't, because stability built on avoidance is fragile. And this is where it shifts. You're not just using a credit card, you're building a system. That only works as long as nothing goes wrong. So what happens when something does? Number 4, balance transfers as escape. You move the balance. New card, 0% interest. It feels like relief, like you've reset the system. But pause, because nothing was actually solved. You didn't eliminate the debt, you relocated it. And this is where it becomes a cycle, because the underlying behavior didn't change. So the balance grows again, and eventually, you're not managing debt, you're moving it from place to place, buying time. But time isn't neutral. It increases pressure, because every delay raises the stakes. So now the question is, if you keep resetting the clock, when does it finally run out? Or 3, using credit to maintain a lifestyle. You look around your life. It looks right. The apartment, the car, the small comforts. Everything feels earned. But underneath, something is holding it together. Credit, not to grow, but to maintain. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Because now, your lifestyle depends on it. You're not using credit occasionally. You're relying on it to keep things stable. And stability feels good until it becomes dependency. Because now, any disruption becomes a threat. A missed payment, a drop in income. And suddenly, everything tightens. Because the life you built requires constant support. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If your lifestyle needs debt to survive, it's not stable. It's suspended. 2, carrying a balance is normal. At some point, it stops feeling temporary. The balance becomes permanent, just something you always have, like a bill, like rent. And that's where the shift locks in. Because now, you're not trying to eliminate it. You're managing it, and that changes everything. Because management removes urgency, removes discomfort, removes the need to change. And once that happens, years pass, payments happen, interest accumulates, and the total cost quietly explodes. Not because of one decision, but because nothing changed. And here's the hardest part. It feels normal, which means you stop questioning it. So now ask yourself, if it feels normal, how long have you been stuck? Number 1, mistaking control for progress. You track your spending. You pay on time. You stay within limits. From the outside, you look disciplined, responsible, in control. But something doesn't feel right. Because despite all that, you're not moving forward. And this is where everything connects. You didn't build a system for growth. You built a system for maintenance. You're not escaping debt. You're managing it efficiently. And that's the trap. Because it feels like progress, without actually changing your position. And here's the spike. You're not building wealth. You're maintaining a life that slowly gets more expensive to sustain. Every month, every swipe, every decision that feels fine. And suddenly, that $10,000 loss doesn't come from one mistake. It comes from a system that never forced you to stop. You thought the risk was overspending. It wasn't. The real risk was feeling like you were doing it right. Because that feeling is what kept you from questioning anything. And now, everything connects. The minimum payments, the rewards, the balance that never disappears. It wasn't random. It was a system. One that feels stable, but slowly drains your future. And this isn't the worst part. Because credit cards don't just cost you money. They reshape how you think about money. And that changes every decision after it. Every investment, every opportunity, every version of your future. But that's a deeper layer. And you won't see it until you look at the next one. Top 10 money decisions that feel smart, but quietly destroy your future.